Why, hello everybody. This is Classical Homesteading Practices, and today it's Introduction to Turkeys. So those of you who want to get into turkeys, either for their large quantity of meat on their body, or because it's a lot faster than growing chickens for meat, or even the fact that it's a great way to substitute chicken eggs if you're allergic to them, and their eggs are a lot larger. So there are many different reasons why people would be super interested in having turkeys in their lives, either as, again, meat, eggs, or pets. Because for those people who do not know, turkeys are actually affectionate. So let's actually start off today by telling you the difference between the turkeys, because depending on how you want your turkey set up, is dependent on the kind of turkeys that you're going to get. So let's start with talking about the different kinds of turkeys. You have commercial breed, and you have heritage breed. And let's start with commercial, because this is the kind that we see in our local stores. This is what we get when it's Thanksgiving or Christmas. It is the 30 or 20 pound turkey. These guys are raised very quickly for a large amount of meat. And the biggest difference between them and a heritage breed is the enormous amount of meat in such a small time that is put on them. And also, when they are grown, they don't act like normal turkeys, like how a wild turkey in the middle of the forest would act. A commercial turkey grows up next to its water and feeder because they grow so large in such a small amount of time that they don't really have the want or the ability to walk around and do normal turkey things. So when I say you're growing for meat, I definitely recommend doing commercial, because they are the fastest way to get an enormous amount of meat. And also, they are the easiest bird to take care of ever, as long as you have the proper conditions for them, which is a dry area where they are able to lay down, eat, drink, make sure that you adjust them from time to time, and just take care of their bedding. Also, you do need to understand that these birds don't need a lot of socialization. They don't need a lot of help, as long as they are clean and dry, and they are a lot quicker to butcher. So 3 months is usually the time that you need for butchering. You can go all the way to 6 months, but it's not necessary because of, again, how quickly that they will grow up. Now, on the other side of the hemisphere, I'm making it such a drastic theme, because the difference between heritage breeds and commercial breeds are that vast. A heritage breed is the closest thing to a wild turkey in lifestyle that you can find. And it's because you've taken all the traits of a wild turkey and just tamed it, versus a commercial breed which has been altered to fit the needs of a consumer lifestyle. So, which, by the way, no judgment. Do not feel bad about raising commercial breeds for meat, because that is their intended purpose. That is what they were genetically made for. As long as you take proper care of them and you do it in a healthy way, power to you. Do it. But for people who want to have turkeys that are beautiful, big, and multi-purpose, heritage breeds are your speed. They will fly grand distances. They are very majestic creatures, and unless you take them inside and make sure that they know you, they will be standoffish. Because again, you need to incorporate them in your life. They need to know you as they're part of the herd, your bird herd, if you want to go crazy with that. And in order to do that, You are going to have to raise them from chicks inside your house. You're going to have to handle them every single day. You are going to have to show them treats and give them love. And in doing that, you are giving a relationship with your turkey that they will associate you with food and comfort and just be okay around you. And this will help you in the long term when getting eggs and processing them for meat, because you won't have such a hard time catching them when they have become adults, because they do run unless you have tamed them. So these birds walk around. They are very energetic until they become adults, and then they just start to mull around and have a good time. They, unless you cut their flight feathers, they will fly 20 feet from their place. They can soar. They can fly over fences that are 5 feet tall. And you need to be aware that they can get in fights with coyotes and larger things, but when it comes to birds of prey, that'll never be an issue. Birds of prey are scared of turkeys, which is also a great thing to put into your regular flock as a guardian bird. So, for anybody who doesn't know what a guardian bird is, it is a bird that basically is there in a duck flock, a chicken flock, any small bird flock to make birds of prey cautious or unlikely to come in there. It's kind of like portable bird netting. And I highly recommend putting a turkey in your flock, especially a tom turkey, which is 30 pounds of feathers and just meat that will go after anything in the yard, because that is its territory, and they are very territorial creatures. Also, usually what happens with turkeys, heritage breeds will breed for life. They will find a mate partner, and they will become inseparable. Now, not too often does a tom find multiple partners, but if available, it will. Do not put two toms in with excuse me, with two ladies, because in the very beginning they are going to fight and see which hen is going to be their mated partner. Now, what you can do later is put two toms or two mated pairs in the same enclosure, but you do need to give them the space that they need in order to have their own territory, because again, toms are profusely territorial. They will fight to the death over this, and the hen that is left will either come over and be a third wheel basically, or she will be killed as well. It's very rare when this happens, but it is a possibility. So, great guardian for your livestock, very great deterrent for birds of prey, even for small marmots and ermine won't come around anymore. And also, if you handle them every day, they become very affectionate creatures. They will look at you as part of their bird herd. They will take care of you. They will make sure that you are not pecked. And I had a tom that would literally be at my side. One, waiting for treats, because that's how birds work. And two, just making sure that the other birds never came over and pecked me. It was a very wonderful experience. I only had that tom for a year, unfortunately, before we moved. But it was a wonderful experience. He was a red bourbon. And I want to say that he was 2 years old at the time. He was a second-hand tom, but he had been raised as a pet. And again, I just came over every day, and I gave him treats, I gave him affection, and we were able to have a relationship where he would, look after me when I came into his turf. But for anybody else who just wants to set them out and forget them. Understand that because these birds are a lot like wild birds, it will be a lot harder for you to deal with them once it becomes time for processing them. Because when they do fly and they do run, a turkey can run faster than you can catch it, unless you corner it. And then you also have to deal with them flying at you and possibly injuring themselves, which, if you don't want the meat to go bad or to bleed out in an area, that is a very big concern that you have to watch out for. So, my advice, handle your turkeys. Yes, it'll seem like an inconvenience in the beginning, but in the long term, especially when it comes to processing time, it is so much nicer because you can handle them, you can pick them up, and then take them over to the log and ka-chunk, heads off. Perfect. Other things that you need to realize, turkey heads may be too big for the killing cone. That is a very big thing. So being steady with an axe and or using a 22 would be a lot easier for you. So if you don't want to handle your turkeys, get very proficient in long range or just shooting in general. It's a very convenient way of taking care of business without having to handle turkeys. Alright, so now we have talked about the two different breeds and their ways of life. Now let's talk about the supplies you're going to need for them. So for commercials, you are going to need either a pen/cage for them to grow in, or you can have them in a house. A turkey house for commercial will need to be at least 4 square feet per bird, because again, these guys are going to grow very big. They're going to be next to their feeders all the time, and even though they will probably all circle around the feeder and the waterers, they're humongous birds and they need their space. If not, it can get really dirty and really disgusting very quickly in that area. And as a bird owner, for any of you who have had birds before, you know and realize when a coop is too small because the birds have poop all over them. And that's the same for commercial birds, except a lot worse because, again, having that plastered all over their legs and their feathers from sitting or laying down all day gets really icky really quickly. So just keep that in mind, at least 4 square feet per bird. I recommend about 5 in all honesty. And you can get away with 4 if you regularly butcher them. So as soon as that 3-month mark hits, bam, processing. If you're going to be doing this on a large scale, I recommend doing a pop-up tent area and only doing it in the summertime. Yes, birds, turkeys in general, are very cold hardy, but being able to have them in a large square footage with like bird netting over them, a place where they won't get rained on, a place that is just safe and dry for them is very important, especially because the quality of life does change the taste of the meat. I know this might sound crazy to you, but it does get more gamey. It gets a lot, this almost weird sour note to it if you leave your bird sitting out strange for most of its life. And also, again, just personal quality of life is, I prefer when raising my birds to have a good quality of life, and that means just giving them a dry, airtight home that I know that they're going to be safe from. For doing heritage birds, I would suggest just a larger version of a chicken house. Making a coop that comes off the ground is totally fine. I would suggest having their roost at least 3 feet off the ground. So building a shed is like the optimal way to have turkeys, because if you do an 8 by 5, so 40 square feet, you can house 10 turkeys fairly easily. I would go down to 8 turkeys in all honesty, and then just putting up a 4-foot roost on the side for them, or either side of the shed, and let them roost from there, because in the wild they like to roost in trees that are 10-15 feet tall. And it is very easy for them as turkeys to fly up to a branch and sometimes climb the tree to get up even higher and then just nest there. Now, turkeys are very cold hardy. Their native lands run from Montana, Wisconsin, Wyoming area, all the way down to Georgia, from what I've heard. I think those are rare cases, though, in all honesty, because again, they're more cold hardy than hot hardy, and they are very good at being temperate when they're adults. But when they're babies, you need to make sure that it's a nice, dry, heated area. They're very fragile when they're 2 to about 2 weeks old. So 2 days old to 2 weeks old is the prime death or mortality rate for turkeys, especially if they get water on them or they just don't have a properly heated area. They need a properly vented area, just like all birds, again, for respiratory reasons. And once they get to their adult feather stage, that is when, excuse me, I'm having a lot of coughing today, guys. My apologies. Once they get their adult bird feathers, that's when you will see this change, not only in the colors, because colors on heritage birds are amazing. It is insane. We will talk about the different kinds of heritage breeds in a minute. But having their adult feathers means that they're going to be able to insulate themselves a lot more easily. And on top of it, if they are grown in the summer and they're acclimated during the fall to the winter, they will grow their under feathers, their floofy plumage that will make sure that they are nice and toasty during the winter months. I do not suggest closing them off to their area. You can let them go outside in most, I want to say about 0 degrees Fahrenheit. They will not go outside if it's any colder than that, mainly because they do understand frostbite. They do understand their limits of cold. But if you find a turkey outside in -10-degree weather and they're just sitting there, go ahead and put it back in and then close the doors, because that's too cold. Frostbite is imminent. Even though they are able to take care of themselves in that kind of weather, they should not be out there. But I have had turkeys that have lived outdoors in 10-degree weather, in 0-degree weather, and I was told that it was fine. I personally do not like it, but in some circumstances I understand that people aren't going to be able to get their turkeys out of the trees. They just won't let them. So worry, and if you're able to, get them into their pens, into their places if you can. If not, they will survive. They will be okay. They may have a little bit of frostbite, but they are hardy enough that they live again in Montana, which is -40-degree weather, without shelter. All right. So, let's see. Shelter. Food is game bird pellets. When they're little, do game bird starter. Then, when they get to adulthood, which is about 16 weeks, go ahead and put them on a game bird pellet, and they will be good for the rest of their life. If you're doing meat and laying birds. For water, again, just do a 5-gallon bucket. For things that they can supplement with, mealworms are fun. Grubs are fine, but they will mostly pick and forage for themselves, so just give them a large running area. When I had 4 turkeys, I did 200 square feet, and then I bumped it up to 400 square feet. This was me not giving them the choice to free range in our yard, just because we had flowers and other things that I was concerned about them getting into and possibly poisoning them. But the other thing is, if you're going to do a sectioned off area like I did, make sure it's at least 5 feet tall, because our hens, being lighter, they roughly range from 13 pounds all the way up to 20 pounds, but they will fly up on a 4-foot fence and just swing back and forth on it, loving the time. They love, again, because they love being up on high perches. 4-foot fence is nothing to them. So either clip their flight wings or make sure it's at least a 5-foot fence or taller. So free ranging them if you want to, but if not, again, make a pen for them so that they can exercise in and forage in. And then lastly, we'll talk about the different types of heritage birds. So the reason why I'm not going to go into commercial birds is because there's really only one kind, and it is a white commercial. And that is usually what they will always be when you go to buy them, is commercial breed white turkey. While on the other hand, heritage breeds have over 15 different types. I know there are more than that, but in my brain there's only 15 that I could really rattle off to you. My personal favorites are the red bourbon, which is the iconic Thanksgiving turkey bird. Royal palms, which are beautiful white birds, snow white birds with black tail feathers on the back. You have bronze, which actually do look like bronze with a little hint of green that you see sparkling in the sunlight. And slate grays, which are a gray feather with a bluish hue to them. Those were the 4 kinds that I personally raised, but there are many, many more. There are whites, dwarf whites, little reds, and so forth. It's a fantastic hobby to get into when it comes to turkey raising if you just want to do it for beauty. But again, utility involved, I would definitely do the red bourbon because they get humongous and they lay about 100 to 120 eggs a year. Something that you need to know with turkeys is that they have a set limit of when they lay. It is completely up to the season of their breeding season, basically. It has nothing to do with light. It has everything to do with just their breeding season. So if your bird only does 100 eggs a year, don't worry, it's fine. That is just their breeding season where they're trying to have turkeys. And when that season comes to an end, you get no more eggs. So that is the drawback of having turkeys as a laying bird. You will have a set amount, and some will go from 100 eggs a year or 140 eggs a year. There is 1 or 2 turkey breeds that can do year-round. I believe one of them is the dwarf white, because they lived in a climate where they're allowed to breed year-round. But for most larger heritage breed turkeys, you're only going to get about 100 to 120 day cycles out of them. Which, for how large their eggs are, and for how long you can store eggs, you can put them away for a long period of time. So, for all eggs, their shelf life is around 6 months. You can also pickle them, and you can can them and put them away. I personally have done eggs for about 6 months, but I also had 5 hens and 1 tom in that. I also had a concern with my red bourbon, though, because he was so large, he was not able to mount any of our females, so I never bred turkeys, especially because some of my turkeys were so small that if my red bourbon tried, he probably would have damaged them in some manner. So when you're looking at turkeys, understand that there's going to be a hard breeding cycle for them, because some toms are so big that you are not able to breed them, which is why commercial breeding is very hard for a lot of farmers, because you have to inseminate the females. Because again, the birds do not really move that much. They can't get on top of each other and take care of business, we will say. But for heritage breeds, especially in blue slate, royal palm, and bronze. Bronze is a little bit iffy because bronze is kind of like red bourbon, where they can get to 20 to 30 pounds all by themselves, and they're too large. But if you get a smaller male, if you get a smaller tom, you'll be able to fertilize eggs. So if you intend to fertilize eggs, just do your research, or look around at different turkey farms and see if you can find a smaller male, because turkeys hop up on top of each other in order to get the cloacas to touch. And I also would say, if you're going to be doing this for breeding, if you don't want feathers to go missing on your turkeys, get a turkey saddle. Yes, it sounds dumb, but it is very important if you don't want turkey feathers to go missing. And yes, after a while, your girls are going to look ragged. So that is just my advice on taking good care of breeding turkeys, and also understanding that the laying season for them is timed. So let's see, we have talked about the different kinds of turkeys, supplies involved, their homing situation, their feed situation, the different breeds, and duality of the breeds. So I hope that this was a good introduction for turkeys for you guys, and I hope this helps you on your homesteading journey. This is the classical homesteading practice. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye now.